Echo Dad would like to talk.
Welcome to Echo Dad. With everything that's going on in the world at the moment, with lots of kids at home, I've had quite a few people come and ask me, what can I suggest to keep them occupied? What can I suggest to keep their education going? Now, Julie Davis has written an amazing article, which I'll link to down in the comments, but I wanted to just expand on some of those and have a look at some skills that we can all have a little play with while we are stuck inside for the foreseeable future. So the first thing a lot of people have said to me is, I've got an Alexa, but my kids have never really used it, and I think now's the time that we want them to. We don't want them using the iPad all day, we don't want them watching the telly all day, and there's only so much that parents can do to try and keep their kids entertained with workbooks and things. So the first thing I say to people that have come to me with that is, okay, if you want some really good, really interactive basic skills to start your kids off with using voice technology, start with an interactive song skill. Look at the Muffin Man, for example, by CHATTY Creations. It's a great skill. It's got lots of different paths that you can do, so it's quite interactive, and it's fun and it's vibrant and it's upbeat. Once you've got used to that, then maybe move on to something like Silly Stories from Press the 8, where you give it certain commands and it'll create stories out of that. And that'll give you an idea of a bit more about the levels of interactivity. Once you've got those down, you can then start to move on to some of the skills that can actually really help try and benefit your education and move forward a bit more. One thing that I've noticed, and we've been doing this for a while now, is that numeracy, maths and STEM is handled much better on Alexa and on voice in general than some of the literacy stuff. So whereas you might think that a voice interaction would be very good at things like phonics, actually it's much better at numbers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through different kind of categories of skills that I think are important at the moment and that can really benefit you and your families and your children. So first up, we're going to look at STEM skills. So you can't start a STEM section without talking about STEM Party. Now, we tested STEM Party a couple of weeks ago, and it's a really good skill that can cover a range of ages. So from sort of age 5, 6 up, all the way up to teenage years. It covers science questions, it covers maths questions, and it's a really comfortable skill to get yourself into the swing of things and get yourself used to using an educational resource on voice. Next up is 1, 2, 3 Math. Now 1, 2, 3 Math has undergone an update recently. We'll be reviewing that shortly on the channel. But this is also another very good one for math skills. Again, it's got difficulties, just like STEM Party, so you've got a kind of an easy, a medium and a hard. So as you move up, as you get older and as you move up the levels, you can challenge yourself. So it's another one to really keep those certainly the mental arithmetic going. Sticking with maths, Bamboo Math from Bamboo Learning is another one that can really push kids with the maths. As I say, voice is much better with numbers, so there are quite a few math skills out there, and I'll direct you to the best way to find some of those in a minute. But yeah, Bamboo Maths is another one that you should go and try out to have a bit of variety as well with the different math skills. The next one is Music Bop Adventure. Now, Music Bop Adventure kind of falls into that interactive music story that I was talking about at the beginning with Muffin Man, but it also does have some elements of STEM in it as well. So for example, one of the adventures in space, you can learn about the planets and the order of the planets and things. So it is also a fun scientific experience as well. Another fun game to play is Number Tennis from Hugo.fm. It's back and forth between, you count to 21, and then there's different challenges as you move up the levels, which is a bit of fun, and it's better maybe for some of the older children, but it is another one that is going to keep your grey matter working. And the final one in my STEM section is Lemonade Stand. Now, those old aficionados of old school computers will remember Lemonade Stand as a game. It's a management sim, but it means you've got to manage money, and that's certainly for older children around 8, 9, 10, are skills that they're not going to be able to use in practice at the moment because they're not going to be going out to shops. So doing something like Lemonade Stand is a good, it's a nice fun lemonade stand management sim, which is good for all ages. Moving on to literacy, there's a lot less, I think, in terms of what you might expect to be learning in the classroom, especially for younger children that don't necessarily know how to read, don't necessarily know how to write perfectly yet. But there are several out there that can really benefit you. The first one is story dice. Now, we use story dice with the kids quite regularly, so they're just dice with different pictures on. You roll them, and the kids kind of create a story out of the different things. So it might have a character, it might have a place, and then it might have like an idea of something that might happen. So, for example, you might have a castle, a princess, and a picnic. Okay, and you come up with a story, and the way that we do it at the moment, because the kids are too young to write, is they then talk it out. But story dice, the voice game, it works in the same way. It'll give you the three things that you can work with, and then you can go and write your own story. So it's an idea generation tool, and it's really quite useful to get the kids writing, because we all remember what it was like when we were at school, and you suddenly go back after the summer holidays and you've forgotten how to write, or your handwriting's terrible. This potentially being a prolonged period of absence means that keeping their writing up is going to be quite handy. Next up are two skills by a developer that simply goes by RI. Alien words, which we tested on the channel a couple of weeks ago, that might have been last week, which, although the pace is quite slow, has a really good concept. It presents words to children and they have to say whether it's an alien word or whether it's a real word. And it helps with kind of understanding of the English language. Second one is myphonics. Now, as I said, phonics doesn't work brilliantly on voice, which is kind of counterintuitive in a lot of ways, but it's also a skill worth checking out just to keep developing some of those skills. Next up for the writing skills is kids categories from Word Nerds. It's another one we've done on the channel. It essentially says, give me name as many things that you take to a party as possible, and you've got supposed to write the list down, which is great. Gives you 30 seconds to do it. It's a bit of a challenge. It's something that, again, can help with spellings, that you can then go back and check, and you can help. So there's lots of ways that things like kids categories can be used to really benefit young people in this time of absence. And my final literacy one is word tennis, again from Hugo FM, the same person that made number tennis. And it's you've got a category, you've got to come up with one thing, they come up, Alexa then says another, or this is the only one on this list that's a bit like this, is you can play against another player. So if you've got two people of a similar age in the house, or parent and child, then you can play word tennis against each other. So just Alexa will just give you the category, or you can play it against Alexa if you need a bit of respite. But it's not the end of the list by any means. Now, literacy can mean, all the skills that I put in the literacy element there are very much kids doing stuff and kids writing and trying to learn. There's also the story element. So there are lots of skills out there that provide an element of stories, interactive stories. I mentioned at the beginning there silly stories. There's a skill called Story Maker that works in a similar vein. Now, there are also skills that are just, they'll tell you a story based on some of your favourite characters. So, for example, the Hotel Transylvania skill from Sony is based on the film series, and it will provide you with a story of the Hotel Transylvania characters. My kids happen to really love that series of films, so that goes down quite well. But there's lots of others. Amazon have Amazon Storytime. BBC Kids have elements of stories within their skills. And then there's others like Red Riding Hood, which is a good interactive story that either you take the side of the wolf or you take the side of Red Riding Hood. So there's a couple of different elements, so you can go back and do something different. It's also worth noting that at this time when the world is essentially on lockdown, we're not flying, we're not using public transport, factories are shutting down, it's having an impact on the environment, and that impact is positive, which is, it's very different to the messages that we've been hearing, we've been telling our children for the last several years. I mean, you look at Venice, for example, the sediment has finally settled and you can see fish in the water for the first time in forever. So it's really good to kind of try and keep that message going and cover some of those environmental impacts, and there are skills to help that too. So two that I'm going to call out. One is Garbage Hero from PRETZEL Labs, where essentially you kind of categorise recycling. We're all going to be stuck in the house, we can still recycle. So that's a really good one to play, just to get kind of keep recycling in your head. Another one is Green Stuff by Digital Dozen, which is an interactive story again, but it's environmental. It's good to check out some of those environmental skills just to keep those things fresh in their minds as well. But just because we're all inside doesn't mean that the environment isn't still changing. And don't forget, it's not just about learning, right? The kids have also got to have fun, they've also got to stay fit and healthy. But then there are plenty of Alexa skills out there to help kids keep active. So the first one to shout out to is Freeze Dancers from PRETZEL Labs, essentially musical statues. But it is, it's a really good, fun way of keeping active. Another one is Musical Bumps from Top Voice Apps. Again, the classic game of musical bumps in voice app form. And finally, Animal Workout from For Jack and Jill, which is again, it's an animal. You pretend to be an animal, you're working out. You pretend to be an elephant, you pretend to be a bee, a butterfly. But it's great fun, and some of those we've tested on the channel before, and some of them we'll be testing in the future. So, there's plenty of skills out there to keep active as well. It's not just about sitting and learning, it is about keeping your body going and moving while we're not necessarily getting out as much as we used to. Now, one thing that is going to be a challenge for all of us that are in with our children is setting up a new routine. Like we've got routines in place. We get them dressed, we get them sent to school. They've got routines in school. They come home, and then we've got other routines that we do. Setting up a routine to keep them learning, keep them educated in some way, shape, or form is going to be challenging for some parents. So, one thing I might suggest is starting the day with some of the one-shots. Now, when I was writing this section, it ended up turning into a section where all of the skills that I'm going to mention now are all from one company. They're all from Matchbox.io, which they produce brilliant skills, well worth looking at. So my suggestion is that you start the day with a one-shot. So the one-shots are a daily skill where you get something new every morning or every day that you try it out, and you can use that to kind of set up the day and start the day. So the ones I'm going to suggest to you, if you've got young children in particular, are Animal of the Day. As kids get a bit older, maybe Riddle of the Day and Question of the Day. All good for not just the young people, but also us to keep our minds active. And when we tested Animal of the Day a few weeks back, the question surprised me. So it's not just about keeping the kids entertained; it's also about keeping us entertained. I would also, within that, suggest something like Kids Quiz, maybe as a kind of a warm up to get the brain going a bit of a starter, or maybe at the end of the day as a bit of a plenary, just to kind of have a bit of fun with Alexa as well. It's not just about, it's not just about learning. Kids Quiz can really educate you, but also it's got the fun element as well. Okay, we're on the home stretch now. So one thing I would suggest is you can also get Alexa to make decisions for you. Ask her to flip a coin. Ask her to play rock, paper, scissors. If you're feeling particularly adventurous, maybe ask her to play super rock, paper, scissors with, I think it's up to 15 options from Voxellerate, which is another good skill out there to kind of expand on an old premise. And the final skill I'm going to recommend is when your kids inevitably have a meltdown and inevitably have an argument, I would suggest Kids Court from PRETZEL Labs to try and help settle that argument. It is an amazing skill. It's well worth checking out just on its own if they haven't had a disagreement. But yeah, go check out Kids Court. It's one that I think is going to save a lot of households over the next few months. And the best advice I can give over all of this is go to the Alexa app, go to the Alexa section on Amazon's websites and look for skills. If you're looking for a math skill, type in math. If you're looking for a phonics skill, type in phonics. If you're looking for a particular story, type in story. Look for those particular stories. My son came home the other day telling me about 3 Billy Goats Gruff, so let's go look for a story about that. Let's talk about Red Riding Hood. That's why we found out about the Little Red Riding Hood skill. So let them guide you to a certain extent, but there is plenty in the store to find, and equally there's loads and loads of hidden gems in there. So use that Alexa app to try and find more. I normally end these videos by saying the future's here, go live it. I'm not going to today. The world is moving at 1,000 miles an hour. Everyone is understandably quite uptight, quite nervous, scared about what is going to happen, and what's going. All I can say is, follow the medical advice. Try and stay away from vulnerable people that are particularly susceptible to this virus. Look after each other, look after yourselves, and stay safe.